Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into some sources that really make you confront a disease many of us think of as, well, history, tuberculosis.
Yeah, but it's anything but history. It's still the single deadliest infectious killer on the planet.
Which is just staggering when you look at the numbers our sources lay out. TB has potentially killed 1 in 7 people who have ever lived.
Ever. Think about that. Over 1 billion deaths in just the last 2 centuries. And get this, in 2023, it officially reclaimed its title as the world's deadliest infectious disease.
How many deaths was that?
1,250,000 people. Preventable deaths globally.
Preventable. That's the word that sticks, isn't it? Because here's the paradox we're digging into today. TB has been curable since the 1950s.
Exactly. We have the medicine, we know how to stop it, and yet we don't. We sort of collectively choose through neglect and, frankly, injustice to let it continue.
And that choice, that's what we're unpacking. We're going to trace TB's shadow through history from this, mysterious, almost romantic killer.
Right. Hard to imagine now.
All the way to today. And we'll use that history to understand where global health policy fails and how deep human injustices let this bacteria just thrive.
Yeah.
So our mission today, for you listening, is to explore how this quiet disease literally shaped culture, warfare, even beauty standards. And crucially, why the cure is still so hard to get for millions.
And we'll meet Henry, a young man from Sierra Leone. His journey, it really captures both the terrible failures and the incredible resilience we're capable of.
Okay. Let's start by stepping back into that historical shadow. It's vast.
To really get the weight of TB, you have to grasp the sheer terror it inspired for centuries before we called it tuberculosis.
It had other names, right?
Oh, yeah. Evocative names. Physis, that's Greek for to decay or to waste away, or just consumption, because it looked like it was literally consuming the person from the inside.
And our sources show this wasn't some new thing. It might be the oldest contagious disease we have evidence for.
Found in Egyptian mummies, 5,000 years old.
Wow.
The fear was universal. Ancient Hebrew texts called it Shachafeth, wasting away. And Hippocrates, the father of medicine, he basically told his students, don't even try to treat it. You'll fail. It's inevitable. That's how hopeless it seemed.
And that hopelessness stretched right into the Enlightenment, didn't it? Even brilliant minds were powerless, like James Watt, the inventor.
Yeah, a mechanical genius.
Yeah.
But consumption hit his family hard. His daughter Jessie, then his really promising son Gregory.
Gregory had all the classic symptoms.
Textbook case. The cough that wouldn't quit. The night sweats, losing weight. Just wasting.
Watt tried to fix it like a machine.
He did. He thought it was like a lung failure, maybe bad air mixtures. He even helped develop this nitrous oxide machine to treat Gregory, trying to fix a biological leak with mechanics.
But it didn't work?
Not at all. Gregory died in 1804. He was only 27. It just shows for thousands of years this thing was everywhere, nobody understood it, and even the smartest people had no answers.
It's wild how something like that, this slow killer, didn't just affect families, but shaped geography and culture, even politics.
Oh, absolutely. The connections are sometimes really unexpected.
Like the cowboy hat. I found that fascinating.
Right. The Stetson. So the story goes, John B. Stetson, the hat maker, starts coughing blood in the 1850s. Diagnosis. Consumption.
And the thinking back then was?
The travel cure. Head west, get to dry air. No real science behind it, but that was the belief.
Because he goes west.
Yeah, heads to Missouri. And he actually starts feeling better. Now, he might have just been in that 20-25% who recover on their own, spontaneously.
Okay.
But while he's out there recovering, he sees the hats people are wearing, not great for the frontier. So he gets this idea.
He survives, goes back east, and invents the Stetson.
Exactly. The iconic symbol of the American West, born partly out of a desperate search for a TB cure.
That's incredible. And then there's the link to World War I. Our sources suggest TB played a role in starting it.
A very specific, grim role. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo.
The spark that lit the fuse.
Right. It was carried out by this group of, frankly, pretty incompetent Serbian nationalists. And 3 of the key players, Nedeljko Kabrinovic, Trifko Grabez, and Gavrilo Princip, the guy who fired the fatal shots.
Yeah.
They were teenagers. And they all had advanced terminal consumption.
Seriously. They were dying anyway.
Pretty much. Coughing blood, wasting away. They knew they didn't have long. And that knowledge, that sort of nihilism, seems to have made them willing to take extreme risks, to become martyrs for their cause. Like, what have we got to lose?
Wow.
They got caught, of course, but because they were technically minors, they couldn't be executed under Austro-Hungarian law. They were in prison.
And the tragic irony.
All three of them died of tuberculosis in prison. Before the war, they helped trigger even ended.
Yeah.
TB gave them the motive, the timeline, and then it killed them anyway.
That's heavy. Shifting gears a bit from assassins to artists, there was this whole period where TB was seen completely differently. The flattering malady.
Yeah, the 18th and 19th centuries, TB was epidemic, especially in crowded cities. It was hitting young people hardest, 20s to 40s. They called it the robber of youth.
So many people were dying young.
That society kind of coped by romanticizing it. It got linked to genius, sensitivity, artistic temperament, even a sort of spiritual insight.
Like it made you more profound.
That was the idea. Doctors talked about spes sapientia, the consumptive spirit. Dr. Arthur Jacobson literally argued it offered divine compensation. Shortened your life, maybe, but made your mind and soul more vibrant.
Which led to this bizarre beauty standard. Consumptive chic.
Totally bizarre. The actual symptoms became fashionable, the paleness, the thinness from the wasting.
But also the rosy cheeks from the fever.
Exactly, and the wide sunken eyes from lack of oxygen. That became the look.
People actually tried to look like that.
They did. Women used belladonna carefully. It's poisonous to dilate their pupils for that wide-eyed, ethereal look, and red paint or rouge for the hectic glow on the cheeks.
Who was the poster child for this?
Eliza Poe, Edgar Allan Poe's mother. She died young from consumption and was often held up as the ideal of this tragic, beautiful look.
But this whole romantic image, it was just a coping mechanism, right?
Right.
A lie to cover up something horrific.
Absolutely a lie. Charles Dickens wrote about the death as gradual, quiet, and solemn, refining the body. That was the comforting narrative.
But the reality, like from autopsies of people like the poet Keats.
Pure agony. The bacteria literally eats away at the lungs, creates cavities. They fill with blood pus. You struggle desperately for breath, turn blue. Basically, you drown in your own infected fluids. Horrifying.
So the romance was a necessary shield against that unbearable reality, because it was happening to so many young people.
Precisely. A way to make the intolerable seem somehow meaningful, even beautiful.
Okay, so that romantic myth gets shattered in 1882. Robert Koch.
The game changer. The German doctor identifies the culprit, Mycobacterium tuberculosis.
And suddenly, it's not consumption, the condition of sensitive souls anymore.
Nope. It's tuberculosis, an infectious disease spread by germs, linked to environment, poverty, close contact. A total paradigm shift.
And this bacterium, it's unusual, isn't it?
It really is. It's a slow operator. You know, E. coli can double every 20 minutes or so. M. tuberculosis takes about a day.
Why so slow?
It puts a ton of energy into building this incredibly thick, waxy, fatty cell wall.
That wall is key.
Absolutely. It's like armor. Makes it really tough for our immune cells, our white blood cells, to penetrate and destroy it.
So the body's response is often just to wall it off.
Exactly. The immune system forms these little balls of calcifying tissue around the bacteria. Those are the tubercles. That's where the name comes from.
And that bacteria can just hang out in there.
Yeah, it can survive, replicating super slowly, sometimes for decades, without causing active disease. That's latent TB. You're infected, but not sick, not contagious.
That's where that old Taoist name comes from, right? Shijai.
Corpse disease, because it's like this living death potential inside you, a biological time bomb almost.
So Koch makes this huge discovery, becomes famous, but then he stumbles.
Big time. He was in this fierce rivalry with Louis Pasteur in France. National pride, scientific ego. It drove him to rush his next big announcement.
Which was?
Koch's serum, or tuberculin. He claimed it was a cure in the late 1880s.
And people were desperate.
Desperate doesn't even cover it. Thousands flooded Berlin, rich, poor, everyone pinning their hopes on this miracle cure. But it wasn't a cure.
It actually made things worse.
Much worse. And Arthur Conan Doyle, yes, the Sherlock Holmes guy, but also a physician, he investigated this.
What did he find?
He realized the serum didn't kill the bacteria. It attacked the infected tissue. So patients got these violent fevers, got sicker. The disease progressed faster in some cases.
Yeah, that great quote about it.
Oh, yeah, brilliant analogy. He said Koch's approach is like picking up rat shit, not killing rats. You're dealing with the symptom, not the cause.
But Doyle noticed something else, didn't he? Something useful came out of this disaster.
He did, his aha moment. He saw that tuberculin caused this strong reaction fever, chills, but only in people who were already infected. Latent or active didn't matter.
How did he confirm that?
Well, legend has it he tested it on himself, Koch, Koch's mistress, assistants, and they all got sick, which proved they were all walking around with latent TB, likely from the lab.
Oh, wow. So the failure is a cure.
Became the breakthrough for diagnosis. Doyle realized its real value was as a screening tool. The tuberculin skin test we still use today, basically. It could tell you who'd been exposed.
But Koch's reputation took a hit.
A massive hit. He'd promised a cure, people had died trying it. He was disgraced in many circles.
Now, this shift to germ theory, while scientifically correct, it had a dark side, didn't it? It fueled new kinds of prejudice.
Immediately. And this is really insidious. The stigma became racialized in a completely new way.
How so? Our sources mention a complete flip.
Yeah. Before Koch, you actually had white physicians calling TB the white man's plague. And the racist thinking then was that black people, indigenous people, they supposedly lacked the intellectual refinement or sensitivity to even get such a complex disease. Utterly bizarre.
It's awful.
But after Koch, when it became clear TB spread through things like poverty, bad housing, poor sanitation, conditions forced upon marginalized communities.
There, you meant flip.
180 degrees. Suddenly, the high rates in black and indigenous populations weren't seen as a result of systemic oppression, but were blamed on inherent racial susceptibility.
What kind of justifications did they use?
Terrible pseudoscience, claims of smaller chest capacity, or maybe the most grotesque, blaming it on the end of slavery, arguing that black people just couldn't handle freedom and planning, and that made them vulnerable.
Blaming the victims for the conditions created by the oppressors. Classic.
Textbook. Thankfully, black doctors and healthcare workers fought back hard against this narrative.
Like Dr. A. Wilberforce Williams.
Yes. Over a century ago, he nailed it. He said the real cause wasn't race. It was, and I quote, poverty, bad housing, bad sanitation, bad working conditions, long hours, high rent, and poor food.
And that diagnosis,
Yeah.
it's still depressingly accurate today, isn't it?
It's probably the single most accurate predictor of TB risk. The bacteria doesn't care about race. It follows the pathways carved out by injustice and lack of resources. That's the history we need to understand for the present.
So connecting that history to today.
Yeah.
TB isn't just linked to poverty. Our sources frame it as an engine of poverty.
Yeah, it's this vicious self-perpetuating cycle. It's an illness that makes you poorer, and poverty makes you more susceptible. It weakens health systems, making it harder to fight. It thrives on malnutrition, and it causes malnutrition. It just traps people.
And we see this cycle devastatingly clearly in the story of Henry Ryder in Sierra Leone.
Absolutely. And to understand Henry's context, you have to understand Sierra Leone's history. Dr. Baylor Berry makes this incredible point.
About the railroads.
Yeah. He says, if you want to understand why Sierra Leone is poor, you must look at a map of our railroads.
Because they weren't built for the people.
Not at all. They were built by the British purely for extraction, to get diamonds, ores, whatever, from the mines straight to the ports and out of the country. Nothing about connecting communities or building internal trade.
Designed for depletion, not development.
Exactly. And after 150 years of that kind of colonial rule, life expectancy in Sierra Leone was shockingly low, under 30 years old, like pre-modern times.
That's the backdrop for Henry's childhood.
Right. Freetown, post-Civil War, deep poverty. His mother, Asatu, struggling immensely just to feed him and his sister favor.
And that malnutrition is key, right? For TB.
It's a major trigger. It weakens the immune system to the point where it can't keep that latent TB walled off anymore. The bacteria breaks out, it becomes active disease.
Henry gets sick when he's about 6.
Around that age. And the first hurdle is diagnosis. The tests they likely used first, smear microscopy.
Cheap, but not very accurate.
Especially in kids. It misses about half of all active cases because children often don't have as much bacteria in their phlegm. So his case was probably missed initially.
He eventually gets put on the standard drugs, the RIPE regimen.
Yes, but then his father steps in. He's frustrated, distrustful of this system that's clearly failing, and he insists Henry stop the drugs and see a traditional faith healer instead.
It's easy to judge that from afar, but...
You really can't. The formal health system was likely abysmal, maybe no running water, patchy electricity, staff shortages. The traditional healer offered something the clinic couldn't. Personalized care, attention, respect for their beliefs, emotional support. They were seeking holistic care, humanity.
And then tragedy strikes the family again, compounding everything.
His younger sister, Favor. She developed a throat tumor, treatable with surgery.
But they couldn't afford it.
Isatu tried everything, sold what little they had. She described the money just being whipped away on sickness, but it wasn't enough. Favor died. She was 7.
It's just brutal how poverty turns survivable things into death sentences.
And then, on top of this chronic struggle, the whole system just collapses. Ebola hits West Africa 2014-2016.
The sources call it an acute on chronic crisis.
Perfect description. The already fragile healthcare system was just obliterated. Healthcare workers died. People were terrified of clinics, rightly so. They became infection hotspots.
So people with TB.
They couldn't get care. They couldn't get their meds. Treatment regimens were interrupted everywhere.
Creating the perfect storm for drug resistance.
Exactly. As Dr. Berry said, this was the chance for TB to evolve resistance. Regular TB turned into drug-resistant TB, DRTB. And that unchecked spread, that chaos, is why Henry gets severely sick again in 2016.
But this time, it's not just TB.
No, this time it's a strain that the standard first-line drugs won't kill. He's now facing a much deadlier, harder-to-treat form of the disease, born directly from systemic collapse.
Which brings us right to this, central moral failure. The cure existed. By the 1960s, we had the RIPE drugs.
Rifampin, isoniazid, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, a cocktail that made TB curable. And the impact in rich countries was dramatic.
Death rates plummeted, right?
90% drop in the UK in just a decade. Think about that.
My own great-uncle died in a sanatorium around 1930. Just 20, 30 years later, that was basically unthinkable in a place like the UK or the US.
Exactly. The sanatoriums emptied out. Remember Gail Perkins' story from the sources? She spent 12 years in one, starting when she was 3.
Treated like prisoners almost.
Very much so. Strict rules, no crying allowed, minimal movement, kept isolated from bad news. Her friend Angie's father apparently forged letters in his dead daughter's handwriting to keep Angie motivated to cure, dehumanizing control.
And that control mentality, it kind of carried over, didn't it? Even when they tried to tackle TB globally.
It absolutely did. With the DOTS strategy, directly observed therapy, short course.
The idea sounds simple enough.
On paper. Use the cheap smear tests for diagnosis and then watch the patient swallow every single pill to ensure compliance. Often meant daily trips to a clinic.
But compliance is a loaded word.
Deeply loaded. DOTS saved millions, yes, but the whole philosophy was built on distrusting the patient, treating poor people like unreliable kids who couldn't manage their own health.
It ignored the reality of their lives.
Totally. Imagine being Henry, malnourished, weak, maybe throwing up from the drugs, vision blurry, skin turning yellow, and then being told you have to somehow find money for transport every single day to prove you took your pills.
Or find food to take them with because they make you sick on an empty stomach.
Right. So people stopped treatment. Not because they were non-compliant, but because the system demanded impossible sacrifices. Expense, side effects, logistics.
Dr. Jennifer Furin had that quote.
Yeah, powerful. She said she knows no other field of medicine where therapy is based so completely on lack of trust toward patients. Policing the poor instead of supporting them.
And this focus on cheap diagnostics and forced compliance, it created the perfect breeding ground for drug resistance.
Precisely. Because people couldn't complete the inadequate treatment.
And the pharmaceutical industry, did they step up with new drugs for resistant strains?
Crickets. For 46 years. Between 1966 and 2012, basically 0 new drugs specifically developed for TB.
46 years. Why?
No profit. TB was seen as a disease of poor countries, poor people, no lucrative market, so companies just didn't invest. Intentional neglect.
And that neglect allowed DRTB and the even worse MDR-TB, multi-drug-resistant TB, to explode globally.
Becoming a massive crisis. And Henry, now with DRTB, becomes a direct victim of this decades-long failure.
When the RPE drugs fail him, what's next?
The older second-line drugs, including the highly toxic injectables, like kanamycin.
Which has terrible side effects.
Severe side effects. Ototoxicity, hearing loss is a major one. The data suggests over 20% of people get permanent hearing damage.
And that happened to Henry.
Yes. He woke up one morning, couldn't hear in his left ear. Permanently. And the most heartbreaking part.
You didn't tell anyone.
He didn't tell the doctors. He was terrified they'd stop the treatment altogether if he reported the side effect. That the only lifeline he had, toxic as it was, would be taken away. He chose deafness over death.
God, that's awful. And the ultimate cruelty is, there was a better option by then, wasn't there?
There was. Bedaquiline. A newer, safer oral drug. Developed, by the way, with significant public funding. Taxpayers' money helped create it.
But Henry couldn't get it. Why?
Because the pharmaceutical company, Johnson & Johnson, held the patent and charged outrageous prices. A monopoly.
Even though it could be made cheaply.
Sources suggest it could have been made profitably for maybe $130 per patient course. But J&J's price put it completely out of reach for Sierra Leone's health ministry.
So Henry and thousands like him were stuck with the toxic, deafness-causing injectables because of corporate pricing decisions.
That's the grim reality. Profit over people. It led to activism, though. Shreya Tripathi in India.
She had the extreme form, XDR-TB.
Yes, and she sued the Indian government for access to bedaquiline. She won, forcing them to provide it.
But it was too late for her.
Tragically, yes, her lungs were too damaged by the time she got the drug, but her fight sparked a global movement, putting the pressure on.
It's the same story with diagnostics too, isn't it? Better tech exists, but it's kept out of reach.
The GenExpert test. It's amazing. Molecular test. Identifies TB and drug resistance in just a couple of hours.
Right.
Way better than smear microscopy.
But the cost?
It's the classic razor blade business model. Sell the machine relatively cheap.
And make all the money on the disposable cartridges.
Exactly. And those cartridges are expensive. To test one person properly takes 2 cartridges. Cost $24.88.
Okay, put that number in context for Sierra Leone.
$24.88 is more than half the country's entire annual healthcare spending per person for the whole year.
One test costs more than half the yearly budget per citizen.
It's utterly indefensible. It forces entire countries to rely on cheap, inaccurate methods because the upfront cost of the better tech, the margin on that cartridge, is just too high.
Even though treating the missed cases, or the resistant cases that develop, costs far more in the long run.
Far more. But the immediate price tag, driven by profit motives, creates this deadly barrier. It's a choice the global system makes every day. Prioritize shareholder returns over preventing death.
Okay, so amidst all this systemic failure, Henry's story takes a turn. It becomes about individual will pushing back.
Yes, and it shows that these cycles can be broken. It starts with Dr. Jiram Tefera at the Lhasa Hospital.
He refused to give up on Henry.
He saw Henry, even desperately ill, mentoring other patients, talking about school. Dr. Jiram just thought, he's a person, he deserves to live, he wouldn't accept him as a lost cause.
Even when Henry's father showed up.
Yeah, that was a crisis point. The father was furious. Henry had failed multiple regimens, lost his hearing. He wanted to take Henry home to die with dignity. He actually threatened Dr. Jiram.
What did Dr. Jiram do?
He made this incredibly brave, desperate plea, stood his ground and said, basically, don't hit me now, beat me later if this doesn't work.
Buying time.
Buying time. And he used that time to work completely outside the box, collaborating with colleagues, getting experimental drugs smuggled in, literally driven across the border from Liberia, carried in suitcases by travelers, piecing together a last-ditch customized regimen for Henry.
And Henry had to choose to trust him.
Yeah, he just watched his friend Thompson die in the same ward. He was scared, but he wanted to live to be a person in society, as he put it. He put his faith in Dr. Jiram.
And this time it worked.
Amazingly fast. Within a week of starting this new combination, the ruptured lymph nodes on his neck started healing. He started eating, gained weight rapidly. Dr. Jiram called it like magic.
After 3 years in the hospital.
3 years, multiple near-death experiences. He finally goes home. To Isatu, his mother, the one who stands closer.
So Henry's individual survival, driven by this doctor's commitment, it becomes part of a larger positive shift.
A virtuous cycle, exactly. And we have to connect it back to earlier wins, like Partners in Health, PIH, in Peru back in the 90s.
They proved MDR-TB could be treated in poor settings, right?
Yeah.
When the WHO was saying it was too expensive.
Exactly. The official stance was basically, let them die. PIH refused. They showed that with comprehensive support, food, transport, housing, alongside the drugs, you could cure MDR-TB even in chaos. And their work helped drive down the initial high costs of those older second-line drugs.
That set a crucial precedent.
Hugely important. It laid the groundwork for later activism, like the fight against J&J over bedaquiline prices.
Led by survivors like Fameza Tissel.
Yes, who also lost her hearing to the injectables, just like Henry. She and others fought J&J's attempt to extend their patent in India using legal challenges.
And they won.
They won big. J&J eventually backed down globally. The price of bedaquiline plummeted by over 60% almost overnight.
So what's the cost difference now, treating MDR-TB?
It's incredible. In the 90s, it could cost upwards of $15,000 per patient. Now, thanks to this activism forcing generic competition and price drops, it's around $300 per patient.
Wow, a 98% reduction.
Driven by patients, activists, and dedicated doctors refusing to accept the status quo.
And Henry today, He embodies this hope, right?
Completely. He's in his second year of university, living the dream he held on to through years of sickness.
And he and Isatu have a home.
Yes, because people heard his story, saw the injustice, and donations helped them buy a small place, breaking that cycle of sickness driving poverty.
And he's paying it forward.
Absolutely. He's become an activist himself, shares his full story on YouTube, fights the stigma, mentors other patients in his community. He tells people, go out and preach that TB can be cured.
He turned his suffering into action. He became the virtuous cycle.
Exactly. Proof that the narrative can change. Hashtag tag outro.
Okay, so this is where it gets really challenging, I think. Henry's survival, it feels like this incredible convergence of luck, sheer will, advocacy. Decades of work coming together at the right moment.
It was a triumph against enormous odds.
And it leaves us, and you listening, with this stark choice. Do we focus on the gratitude for these virtuous cycles, the moments like Henry's cure, the price drops?
Or do we focus on the horror of the ongoing vicious cycles? The fact that despite Henry's survival, despite the cure, 1.25 million people still die every single year.
Because the fundamental problem isn't the bacteria anymore.
Not at all. We know how to kill Mycobacterium tuberculosis. The sources are crystal clear on this. The real killer, as Dr. KJ Sung points out, is how we choose to allocate resources. It's injustice. It's human-made systems.
Dr. Sung estimated, what was it? If everyone had access to decent health care.
Like the kind available in wealthy countries. Comprehensive, compassionate, well-funded care. The number of people who should die from TB every year is 0.
0. That's the baseline. That's the goal we're failing to meet by over 1 million deaths annually.
And we know how to get there. The STP initiative Search, Treat, Prevent. It's a strategy scientists have mapped out.
What would it cost?
The estimate is about $25 billion a year, globally, which sounds like a lot, but
the return on investment is huge.
yeah. It's massive. Estimated at $39 saved for every $1 invested. In healthcare costs averted, in productivity gained. It's not charity. It's one of the smartest public health investments imaginable.
So the world will change. We can choose to make TB actual history, a thing of the past.
But that requires acknowledging our role. We're not just observers of this crisis. Our collective inaction, our acceptance of the current system, that is the root cause.
So we want to leave you with this thought. You're listening to this, you're a person with your own complexities, your history, your hopes, your struggles.
And now try to multiply that feeling, that intricate reality of being human.
By 1,250,000 every year. People dying from a curable disease because the systems we've built value profit over their lives.
We know the cost of the cure. We know the devastating cost of neglect. We, collectively, are the cause of this ongoing tragedy. And we, collectively, must choose to be the cure.